Do you think that you have a kind of sort of strong deadlift, but it's slow off the ground? Well, I got some news for you. Your mom thinks you're a disappointment. And I know what you're going to say. Regigigas is a legendary Pokemon and it has a slow start ability. Well, Regigigas is also the disappointment of Nintendo. And you're doing it proud. Hi, I'm Patrick, local mom satisfier. I also deadlift 772 pounds.
Go Pat!
So give me a couple minutes to explain to you how to fix your slow start on your deadlift. Maybe you'll make your mom proud one of these days. There are two main reasons as to why your deadlift is slow coming off the ground. And the problem with it is they kind of look the same, and one of them usually leads to the other, and not the reverse direction. And that's what we're going to be talking about, is how to identify if you have either of these problems or you're just weak. If you either fail a deadlift or your deadlift looks like trash, 90% of the reason is your setup and how it comes off the floor. So if you're slow off the floor, chances are your setup sucks, or you have bad habits and other things are going on that makes it so that you might as well just have bad form. And that leads into our first reason as to why your deadlift is slow coming off the floor. And it's bad form. When you have bad form, you get a lot of curvature in your spine, and your spine becomes less of a rigid structure that you can put load onto, rather than a distribution of loads across a large span of area. So when you have a lot of curvature in your spine, we've got rounding in your lower back and your upper back, those are instances where you might get injured while deadlifting. You can tear your lats, which I've tweaked my lats before. That was not very fun when I was first learning how to deadlift. Or you could herniate a disc, and that is a completely different problem. That is not muscular at all. That is the actual padding between your spinal vertebrae actually getting squeezed out of your spine because you have bad deadlift form. When you have good deadlift form, you don't have any risk of that because you're not curving at your spine. When you're deadlifting, you don't want very much curve in your spine at all. Some will happen above 95%, and that's completely natural. And the way that we set up and the way that we flex our muscles protects our spine from having our juices kind of squirt out of there, like your girl after wine night with her coworkers. But when you have bad form, the amount of force that you can exert on the bar gets distributed across your spine and it gets dispersed. So you could be deadlifting with 500 pounds worth of force towards the floor. You could be pulling with your legs, but it could get fizzled out to like 375 if your form is bad enough. And when you kind of develop the better form associated with deadlifting, you still have a little bit of you've got muscle memory in there. Your body's been doing deadlifts with bad form for so long, it wants to be in that position for every deadlift. So it finds a way to kind of circumvent all the fixes that you've done, and it still produces the bad form. Bad form might not be the right word for here. It's bad starting position, because you can have good form while you're lifting. But as I said previously, if you have bad starting position, your likelihood of success on a lift plummets. And the problem with identifying which problem is going on in your deadlift when you have bad speed off the floor is they kind of look similar, because the tell that you are not efficiently putting the force into the bar to perform the deadlift is present in both cases. And what I'm talking about is your hips. When you deadlift, you basically want a rope, a rigid steel rope connected from your hips to the bar. And that steel rope has no flex. It has no elasticity to it. So when you start to pull, and that steel wire connecting your hips to the bar, this is a metaphor, by the way, for those of you who are more autistic than me, who are taking everything that I'm saying literally. If that string, that rope, that steel wire has any sort of elasticity in it and it starts to flex, your hips will start to rise before the bar starts to rise. You don't want that. When you're deadlifting with bad form, you've got a lot of curvature in your back. That hip shoots up a lot more than the bar does, and you end up being hunched over. And that's where the curvature gets in your spine, is you get so hunched over that the bar hasn't moved yet, and you're trying to overcompensate with other muscle groups other than the muscles that should be acting and firing while you're deadlifting. Because you've got a lot of muscles. You've got your glutes, your hamstrings, your quads, your lats, your core. Those are the muscles that should be firing. But when you get out of position and you get your body over the bar rather than moving with the bar, you bend over and you use smaller muscle groups like the erectors, and mostly the erectors, and they get blown out and your lower back hurts when you perform the deadlifts. That's what causes lower back pain during deadlifts. So when you're going to the gym and you're videoing yourself performing the deadlifts, because let's be honest, everyone and their mom has a tripod in the gym and they're videoing themselves for the likes on the gram, right? Everyone likes to see a 315 deadlift. Maybe. When you're videoing your deadlifts, take a look at what your hips do. Do your hips move before the bar? And if they do, how much? Because you could be getting into a good starting position. You could have a lot of things tight in the right spots. You could have been referencing my previous video on upper body stiffness during the deadlift, which is a good thing. You've got all the things activating, but they could still be loose, and you could still have a bad starting position in the lower body. And when you have a bad starting position, for example, if your butt starts too high, you're still going to get hunched over the bar. And when you get hunched over the bar, even though you have good tightness in your upper body, you could still have bad form. So that starting position is really important. If you get out of position before you've even started lifting the bar, that's not good. That's not good. That you don't want that, because it basically throws all the work that you've done out the window and you're back to form A where you have bad form. So that's the problem with speed off the floor with deadlifts. It's very case by case. Why do you have bad speed off the floor? The two main reasons is you have bad form, where you don't have anything bracing at the right, which I would suggest you watch my upper body tightness video to kind of get how to set your lats and how to set your core before you start to deadlift. Second, you could be loose with those, and your body is going to still revert back to the muscle memory of you doing bad deadlifts for so long. You got to work that out with really light deadlifts. It takes about 200 reps of good form with any movement to break a bad habit and implement a new habit. So it's a lot of reps, a lot of tonnage that you're going to have to do. You're going to have to humble yourself and work on to get yourself deadlifting better form. And that this is applicable to both bench and squats. So bad form and being loose with good form basically leads to bad form. And the third, you're just not explosive off the floor. You've done everything right, and you're just not an explosive person. Now, it's a little different if you're talking about sumo and conventional, because sumo, everyone's sumo, is hard off the floor. It's not that fast off the floor. It's slow off the floor. It's like the moniker saying, if you're a sumo deadlifter and it gets off the floor, it's going to lock out. It's going to be a little slow off the floor because you have to. Sumo deadlifts rely a lot on slack pull and getting into position with the slack in the bar, because they can almost lock out a deadlift before they've even taken the bar off the floor. That's just how the form works. And I know what you're going to say. Sumo is cheating, this and that. I bench more than I sumo, so invalid point. So if you have bad form, if you lack tightness in your form, you're going to have a bit of a hip raise. But if you're just weak, let me show you a couple accessory movements to help you build up that speed off the floor. And this is good for people with bad form to kind of get used to getting into a good starting position and working that. I'm sorry about this different format today. There's people in the gym and they're playing music on the Bluetooth. And I don't want to be that guy who's just like, hey, I have to record this video for the YouTube. Turn your music off. Because I also don't want YouTube to get mad at me for copyright and whatever, even though they constantly are. And I want the audio quality for this to be good as well. So the first accessory movement I'm going to talk about today is called hobbit pulls. Now, A lot of people call them half pulls and pulls to the knee, but I'm a fan of Sir J.R.R. Tolkien, and hobbits are halflings, so half pulls, halfling pulls, they're hobbit pulls. So when you do the hobbit pull, what you want to do is you want to get in position. You want to get your starting position and pull to your knee, and then go back down. That's it. Repeat it more reps than you could ever perceive. But make sure after every rep, you are going all the way to the ground and you're practicing getting into that starting position and holding that starting position up until you get to the top. So you want that good starting position from the floor to the knee. And you want to practice having your hips come up at the same time as the bar. If the bar is going up after your hips go up, you're not doing them good. You're not doing it well. You're losing tightness, or you're having a lot of looseness in your upper core, your upper back, your core, your upper body. And you need to work on that, or your form sucks. So this is really good because it finds that one point that you suck at, and it really hammers into it. But when you're done doing hobbit pulls, never finish on a hobbit pull. You want to finish on a full pull. So you get that muscle memory of, hey, I've got the starting position. What do I do after the knees? A lot of people are really good at rack pulls. It's almost like a rack pull, but from the floor, because you're practicing going up to the rack, and then the last rep, you're finishing it out almost like a rack pull, but you have momentum in it. So kind of breaking your logic there, thinking, whoa, I'm really good at rack pulls. Let's just do a rack pull from the floor. Whoa, congratulations, you're deadlifting. What this accessory is going to do, it's going to really hammer in your starting position and the rigidity of your upper body and your entire body through the initiation of the movement. If you suck at the initiation of the movement, you're going to be slow off the floor. If you suck at the initiation of the movement, you're going to lose tightness. You're going to get out of form. You're going to get out of the range of motion, and your deadlift's going to look ugly. If you have good form and you have good tightness, you have good starting position, but you're still slow off the floor, this is still going to be a bread and butter movement for you because it's practicing getting off the floor. But if you want to kind of lean into, hey, I don't want to lose speed, lose tightness once I get to my knees, you can increase the frequency that you're doing the full pull. So when I program my clients, I'll program 3 tapped pulls where I do 3 hobbit pulls, and then on the 4th, they do a full pull, a full deadlift. So it's practicing getting into a good starting position. It's also working the firing muscles, the initiation muscles. You're specifically targeting the muscles that need to be worked at the beginning of the movement. The second accessory that we're talking about today is called paused deadlifts. Pausing everything sucks, and everyone hates pausing anything ever, even though when we're on the platform, we do pause bench. And everyone and their mother's going to complain about how long the pauses are. Just practice longer pauses in training and stop doing touch and go. So pause deadlift, what you want to do, there's 2 points in the deadlift that you want to practice pausing, because it's going to be the point where you're going to get the most out of it. The 2 points are as it leaves the floor and at the knee, pretty much right before, pretty much the same spot where you're stopping when you're doing the hobbit pulls. So as you leave the floor, it does something different than pausing at the knee. If you pause as it leaves the floor, you are practicing the form of deadlifting heavier weight. The more weight you put on the bar, the more slack it gets, the more bendy the bar gets. So you're basically preparing yourself for the future. Basically, when you add more weight to the bar, it's going to be slacking more. And the moment that it gets off the floor is going to be later than with lighter weights. So if you pause the moment the bar gets off the floor, you're practicing holding good form with heavier weights while practicing the form for heavier weights with lighter weights. Novel idea. Cool. The second point, which you can pause, and I wouldn't suggest doing both pauses in a single rep. Pause them separately because you don't want to be messing with the speed in which you're doing deadlifts. You don't want to miss your intra-deadlift cueing, is below the knee. When you're pausing below the knee, you are practicing holding that rigidity in your upper body and firing off the floor and then pausing it. The pause is basically saying, hey, we've done enough. Let's hold this tightness for a little longer, just assuming like it's taking longer to get off the floor. If you pause right below the knees, you're getting to that point. You're working those muscles that fire at the initiation of the deadlift, and you're holding that tightness. You're not working the firing muscles. You're not working the initiation muscles during the pause. You're working the muscles that need to stay tight through longer deadlifts. If you're slow off the floor, you need a pause here, because once you're off the floor, it's going to take a long time to get to lockout. And I know what you're thinking. Oh, I want more speed off the floor. Having this is going to fix that second reason why your speed is slow off the floor. You having looseness happening in your deadlift as you proceed. And as you get stronger, as the weight on the bar increases, it's going to take more and more effort, more taxing to stay tight while you're performing the deadlift. So you want to pause right below the knee to remind yourself, I need more strength here. It's going to be working the muscles that need to stay tight. So as you work the Hobbit deadlifts, as you work the 2, 3, 4 tap pulls, you're building the explosiveness off the floor. And then you need to work the tightness of the follow through of the deadlift. So you're working explosiveness with Hobbit pulls, you're working tightness with the pause deadlifts, and all the reasons that are causing your slowness off the floor are going to get worked if you're doing both of these accessories. So there you have it. If you're slow off the floor, and not just slow in general, you don't need a helmet. You just need to work that little bit off the floor and maintain your tightness. So working the Hobbit pulls and working the paused deadlifts is really going to compound and pound in. You need good form. So if your form sucks, do these to kind of practice having good form. It's almost like taking baby steps towards having a good deadlift. If you have looseness problems, but you have tightness in the right spots, but you're still bad off the floor, then do these accessories, and you're going to be working them to stay tight, to learn to stay tight through longer deadlifts. Because as you get stronger, the deadlifts are going to take longer. Unless you just start getting faster and faster off the floor and all your deadlifts move like 135. But that only happens with Eric Lillibridge. And lastly, if you do have a good deadlift, your hips aren't rising before the bar, but you're still slow off the floor, you got to work the Hobbit pulls and the pause deadlifts, because it's going to be working the muscles that initiate the pull and keep you tight through the pull. There's no such thing as staying too tight through a movement. There's always such thing as getting loose in a movement. So you want to practice staying tight, getting tight, and being explosive. So these two accessories are good for people of all levels. If you're a beginner learning to deadlift, it's the baby steps. If you're an intermediate who basically just needs a little better nudge in the direction, these two accessory movements. If you're a good deadlifter, you just need more speed off the floor. There you go. Happy for the whole family. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video despite it being a different format. I don't want to be a jerk in my gym and be like, hey, turn the music off. But I still want to give you guys quality content. So I'm sorry that I didn't record while I was lifting, but with the music going on, it was not possible. So I'm just literally pacing outside of my gym. No one's staring at me because I do weird stuff anyway. So it's just normal at this point. But I hope you guys learned from this video, and I hope you guys understand why this video is important, because if I tell you what to do and you guys don't understand why you do it, then I failed as my job as an internet educator for you strangers on the internet, who some of you may find me attractive, because I've noticed there's at least one female watching now. Be nice to her in the comments. My statistics say there's one female. But all in all, I hope you guys understand why I'm having you guys suggesting these for you guys to do, because it's important. And I've used these in my own training. I use it with my own clients to work out these kinks. They're bread and butter movements that you should be doing frequently. Now, when I program deadlifts, I have an undulation of weeks going. So every other week, I have them do one of these movements. The other week, I work on lockout training. So Dimmel deadlifts is pretty much it. Dimmel deadlifts or banded deadlifts, working on your lockout. But that's a whole different video that you guys probably will ask for later. And I'll give it to you because I'm a sucker for you guys. Anyways, share these with your moms. Tell her that they're out of Newport menthols, so I didn't know what to get, and I kind of just froze at the register, and they sent me back to the back of the line. So, like, if you can give a note as to what I should get her for the next time that I satisfy her, it'd be real nice, because I think she misses me. I've got a lot of texts from her recently. She's waiting on me to respond. But man, the line at the grocery store, the gas station, sorry, is long. And I need to know what kind of cigarette she wants after I blow her holes up. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Hattie out.